Welcome to another episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. My name's Nick Ponte. I'm here with Stephen Clark. How you doing, Stephen?
Good, Nick. Good to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. We'd just like to introduce this week's guest. So we had Qamar Younas on the show. Now, this week's topic is about guaranteed rent. Now, there's probably a number of different companies out there who offer this, including letting agencies. So this is something that entices landlords because they're like, oh, why do I want to have the hassle of like not knowing from 1 month to next if my tenant's going to pay on time? So when people see this guaranteed rent, which is offered, like I said, by letting agencies, councils, and the one that we're going to be talking about today is a company called Mears Group. So they can be called Mears Living as well. Now, basically, just to explain, Mears are basically the company that has the contract with the Home Office, which is the UK government, to provide accommodation to asylum seekers throughout the UK. And Glasgow itself is one of the cities who basically they work with to provide that accommodation. So really generally we're talking about Glasgow in this podcast, and this will affect Glasgow landlords, some of which have got properties with the Mears Group. And also I have received a number of messages from other landlords who have been voicing their concerns about the kind of treatment they've been getting through the Mears Group. Some involve lack of communication, some involve lack of maintenance and repairs, keeping properties up to standards. And obviously Qamar goes into some of these concerns, and he has properties himself that he has with Mears. And Stephen, he was describing some of the issues that he's having.
Yeah, and as from the face of it, it's very much a like I say, an attractive proposition to an investor or a landlord to say guaranteed rent, no letting agent fees, 5-year contracts. They'll take care of the minor maintenance issues off you from it. Of course, it's going to be quite attractive, but it's nice to see Qamar's point of it because he goes into details on a case study, kind of shares numbers on a BRR kind of deal that he picked up and put to Mears Group as well. And he's also touches on quite a bit where it goes wrong and the communication breaks down and you're trying to get your contract and how the dilapidations of the property gets resolved. So it's quite good to see both sides of it as well, to see that it's not just kind of a roast into things and things can go wrong with it. And he does actually, you ask him right at the end, Nick, as well, to point out his kind of top tips and kind of pros and cons of what to look out for when getting involved in one of these contracts.
Yeah, it's worth obviously pointing out as well that apparently, we've yet to confirm this, but apparently Mears have stopped offering these guaranteed rents to private landlords at the moment, but that's not to say they might start up again in the future. So this is good for anybody considering it or, is considering that for their properties. The other thing we should obviously point out is this is just one landlord's experience. Qamar's been good enough to come on the show to explain his experience, but there might well be other people out there that are happy with the experience and happy with the service that they're getting from Mears. But we just wanted to put that out there, and obviously people can make their own judgment as well. We can't say whether it's for you or not. You have to make that call yourself, but we wanted to put that experience out there for you to decide. And without further ado, we'll just cut to the interview with Qamar. Okay, so welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. We're delighted to welcome our guest, Qamar Younas. How you doing, Qamar?
Hello, good morning, Nick. I'm very well, thanks. How's yourself?
Brilliant, thank you. We've got Stephen Clark as well. Stephen's glad to see you're sitting in a Tesla in Park Circus area, Glasgow. Very, very posh there, mate. So,
fellow Tesla owner, we like to. I don't know. I've never seen the feature yet, but somebody's told me there's a feature if you see a Tesla car and you can honor each other or something. Is that right, Stephen?
I don't know about that. I'm not in that group yet.
Apparently, there's a Tesla or something. I don't know what the function is. I've never used it, but there's a function if you see a Tesla. And you can not physically talk to each other, but there's a special kind of horn you can horn at each other.
I have noticed that the fellow Tesla owners sometimes wave at each other, which is
that's exactly what I was going to say. So far, everyone I go by, they've got Tesla, they wave at you. I'm like, oh, hi.
Oh, check you out, guys. Best of buddies. Then I drive past them, my Nissan Leaf, and I get the middle finger. Aye. Well, that's it. So we better watch so we don't turn this show into a car show. This is a property show, so let's concentrate on the property. So we've met a couple of times, Qamar, at various property networking events and that in the past. And obviously you're a property investor yourself. Can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself, how you got involved in property and what you're doing in the current day?
Yeah. we've met quite a few times. You probably not remember some of the times we've met, but I'm quite still not young, but youngish in the property market. But you guys are obviously doing a great job with this podcast. I think I mentioned to you last time as well. I was meeting one of the new guys, and he mentioned your podcast. I actually never knew about your podcast much then. And he goes, "Oh, I listened to these two guys. They're brilliant." I says, "All right, who do you listen to?" He goes, "They're Glasgow based." I'm like, hold on, I know pretty much, who the Glasgow based podcast guys. And you mentioned you guys, so I must say, you're doing a good job. And obviously, these new guys that are coming in, they need some sort of direction. And I guess you guys are there for them. Something to always look back to. But with regards to myself, I've been, like I say, I'm newish to the market. My background is property maintenance and refurbs. I've been doing that for over 10 years now. Started my company, initially I started in 2005, which is 15 years ago, and all I was doing then was EPCs. EPCs just kicked in those kind of days. I went and done the course and started doing EPCs, and then from there grew it. One letting agency asked me, "Can you do gas safeties?" Personally, I couldn't do gas safeties, but managed to get a contractor, and we kind of linked together, and from there grew the company. So now we do quite a lot of reactive stuff and refurbs. And then, like I said, last couple of years I've got into property kind of investments as well, and I'm doing developments. So I've kind of went a wee bit deep in, So we've got quite a few properties. I've got a couple of developments on as well, and mainly we've been, residential wise, it was more favourable when I was renting them to give them to a guarantee scheme. Someone that can just guarantee your rent, and that's it, headache away. And that's the reason why, the main subject today is, renting to Mears. So with regards to Mears, before Mears, it was Serco who took over the contract from Auction and Shipment. And before then, I think it was an Angel Group. So they've been around for a good few years, this rental schemes, it's not something new. And it's always been there as a good concept where you're getting your rent guaranteed, what day you're getting it, and you're getting a 5-year contract is what they were offering then. So it's good from that sense, but I think in the last few years it's kind of it's not went the right way for any of these companies.
Aye, well, let's just hold it there for a second, because I want to know a little bit about your own properties and your own portfolio and stuff. So what sort of properties would you say you invest in? Is it traditional buy to let? Are you looking to do buy, renovate, refinance, or what's your strategy?
So my strategy has been buy to let and buy and refinance as well. So obviously buying it, low end, very low end. Obviously buying something that needs work done, because that's kind of what I do. So, for example, I'll just give you one quick example, which I done last year. Bought property up in Baillieston. Buy price was just about, you don't mind mentioning figures, is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, figures are good. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I purchased this for £29,500 it was. Came on the market, believe it or not, it was in between Christmas and New Year. So keep an eye on it, quickly seen it, arranged a viewing for it. I was through a lawyer's firm up in Baillieston. Went to see it, and it was the owner that came out, and the flat was a total riot. And, I spoke to him, I says, he had it on for offers over 30k, home report at 35. Straight up, I says, what do you want for it? And he goes, oh, I don't know, I says, well, cash deal, settlement 2 weeks, let's talk business. So I managed to get him to agree to 29.5 cash deal. But then he was kind of, he was like a wee bit hesitant. He goes, oh, I've got more viewings booked in later on today, tomorrow. I says, listen, I'm not pressurising you. It's your call. Here's my offer and I'll leave it with you. But managed to kind of get a call back next day saying, well, your offer's accepted. And we did settle it within the kind of 2 weeks period as well. And then I done a refurb on it, kitchen, bathroom. I spent about £8,500 on it. With the legals, everything, I think it's landed me just under 40k, about 39 it was. And then just recently, I got it refinanced. Home report came, well, not the home, the valuation, the surveyor's valued at 62k.
Nice.
I took 45k out from the deal.
Sounds good.
That's it. So managed to get my money all back out, plus more as well, because obviously it was only a 39k spent, so got £6,000 extra from the deal. And that's the property I actually gave to Mears. I managed to rent it out for £435 as well, and that was furnished with Mears. And the good thing about that was when I signed the contract with them, I was a fully kind of maintained contract, so it means that they maintain all the repairs. We don't have to do it, apart from the certifications, which you have to do. Apart from that, they do with all the repairs. So that was a kind of buy to let remodel, a model I done just last year there. But going forward now, that's what I'm working on. I bought another one, which I just flipped actually, to tell you the truth, because I was just too much money in it to keep it. I got a good offer on it, sold that on. So I'm looking, but you'll know better than me. Just now the market's really hot. It's really hard to get deals at the moment. But they are out there. Let's not kid ourselves on, say there's nothing there, because they are there. But you need to just search harder.
No, that you didn't need even more work to get them. But that sounds like a cracking deal. Was that but kind of below market value rent that you gave it on the 5-year contract to Mears, or was that kind of a market rent?
I think I'd done market well with that. I mean, Nickel know the market as well. Baileystown, 1 bedroom, 435. I think that was not, I mean, kind of going market rate. Just well, just now it might be a little bit high, but then last year, I think it was just May, just COVID. So I managed to refurb it during COVID, and I gave it to Mears. They took it on in May, first week of May it was. So I think I'd done, market rate. It wasn't below market or anything. They did start offering decent rents as well, so that's a good thing about them.
So we're in Baileystown here, Qamar. I mean, it can only be one street in Baileystown where you can get a flat for 39 grand. It must be Dyke Street, is it?
No. It's 2 streets. Reddish Home Street.
Right. Okay. There you go. This is going to be a podcast primarily for Glasgow-based investors. So I know. Okay, so that is a good deal, mate. That's cracking. So well done. But I mean, let's just take it back to Mears then. Like, why did you decide then to even sort of approach Mears, or did they approach you, or did you hear something? What inspired you to kind of like rent your property out through the Mears Group?
So like I say, the Mears Group have been around, not Mears Group, but this contract with the asylum seeker housing has been around for, over 20 years, I reckon, even more than that.
Aye.
When I talk to other people, it's been going on for years. So different companies have been coming in and taking it over. But obviously I got to know, when I came on board, it was auction and shipment pretty much. And there was a few staff that used to work in there we got to know. And that's, I was getting work through them as well. With regards to my property maintenance side of it. So, and that's the reason why we went from auction shipment to Serco. Serco was the main one. They actually subcontracted out to auction shipment, it was.
Right.
So auction shipment failed it, and then Serco took it back. And then, because all the staff primarily, sometimes, depending on who it is, they carry on from contract to contract. So when a different company comes and takes it over, the staff go with it. So if I'm right, Mears took it over 2 years, 2 years in it'll be in September there. So 2 years, 1 month, they took the contract over from Serco it was. And there was a lot of debate over on how it's happened, how Mears got it, because they're actually not in this kind of business. They're a more kind of maintenance company rather than, a letting agent or managing bigger contracts. So a lot of landlords were a bit wary of what's going on here. Yeah. And there was, they came in with a lot of dilapidations as well. Even though your property was rented out and you're getting fixed rents and everything, what Mears came in and said, well, we want every property to be in a good condition. So if the property's not been, it's not been a good standard, they wanted to go and refurb it to a good standard. So a lot of landlords got heavy bills in. I'm talking about one landlord I know really well. He's got about 20 odd properties with them, and he had a bill in over 50k plus. And he just said, I can't afford, 50k. I don't have 50k lying about to just start refurbishing it. But I think once they came in with that, I think it was about June, July time before the contract, came for renewal. But then they soon realised that it wasn't going to work, because a lot of these landlords weren't, they were just going to take the properties back. Mm-hmm. And if that happened, then, they were going to lose a good few hundred properties. And if that happened, a lot of people are going to be on the streets. So that quickly kind of, disappeared. They stopped talking about the dilapidations or anything, and a lot of landlords got work done. Like my own properties, I got the work done myself, because I found it obviously cheaper. And it's the prices they were getting were just silly. Painting a property like £2 grand, and new boilers £2,500. You're like, well, it doesn't need a new boiler, and painting is to do with Serco. And Serco, what they were giving you was, what they said is, well, we're just going to give you 1 month's rent to cover the dilapidations, which obviously wasn't going to cover, full dilapidations. Yeah, so it turned into a little bit of turmoil, if you want to call it, in those days between kind of June and October time. And there were a lot of landlords, when they were transferring, because there were uncertainty around it. Sorry, I had a call coming there. Because of the uncertainty, a lot of landlords never signed up the leases, and they missed the first couple of months' rent as well. although they got it back later on, but just a bit of, the transition side of it wasn't great from Serco to Mears. So with regards to myself, like I say, I've been doing it from the days of Auction Shipment, Serco and Mears. This one in particular, the one we just spoke with, the investment side of it, I met with the letting officer from Mears, and they came in and had a look, and they said, yeah, we'll take this on. It's an easy kind of transaction, they come out, check it, sign the paperwork, there's the keys, that's the date you moved in, sign the lease, the rent starts coming in.
So for a bit of background, Qamar, is that is Mears just taking on the properties to give to kind of to help the social housing kind of shortage, or are they going to specifically to a certain tenant?
No, they only so this kind of contract is just for asylum seekers only.
Right.
So what happens is when asylum seekers enter wherever they enter from, whatever port they're coming from, so say 100 enter, what happens is it gets split into 5 zones. Glasgow is one of them. I think it's Belfast, London, Peterborough and Durham, I think. I can't remember the 5 zones, but I know Glasgow is one of them. So out of those 100 that enter, 20 get sent to Glasgow. And then it's up to Glasgow, as in whoever's got the contract, Mears being the contractors just now, they get these 20 asylum seekers coming out to Glasgow, and then they have to house them. And then they obviously get the money coming in from the Home Office. Home Office pay for the accommodation. So it's basically a letting agency kind of style, but they're working just for one landlord, if you want to call it, because the landlord, not the landlord, but the client being just the Home Office.
Yeah.
So they get direct payment from the Home Office.
Do you think traditionally landlords, I'm not saying yourself, but some other landlords who kind of like put their properties on this kind of scheme, if you like, maybe they were having problems like with tenants or something like that, not paying, or maybe they were just thought this is a load of hassle. Was that one of the things that maybe made it attractive to landlords? The fact that they would take it on and it was a guaranteed rent, they would take on the maintenance. I'm just trying to see where the kind of the apple is kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
The apple was, Nick, and you've got a lot of experience as well in Glasgow. So if you had a property in Easterhouse, you were giving it to Mears all day long because you weren't going to get someone local there to take a property and look after it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the areas which were not favourable renting were good for Mears or Serco or this contract.
I mean, there's a market for it, isn't it? Like, you wouldn't. You're not going to give you're not going to consider giving a 2-bedroom flat in the West End of Glasgow. Over to it's a certain type of property, basically. But interestingly enough, I know when it was like Serco and all that. I don't know now, but they used to say that they wouldn't consider certain postcodes.
That's right.
What was the reason for that? Because some of them were in like places like Easterhouse, Govanhill, that sort of thing. Do you know what the reasons for that was?
So there's a couple of reasons. First and foremost, the reason was if they had issues in that kind of area or that street before. So I know one in particular, again, a case study is in Easterhouse, Dunfale Street, right? I can't remember what number it was, right at the bottom at the end, where the dead end is. I can't, like I said, the number of it. But that street they wouldn't take on. The reason was there was somebody that lived in there in those kind of closes that were not favourable to the asylum seekers, if you want to call it. So they would give them a lot of abuse and everything. So then
potentially a racial abuse, probably danger, etc. So
anything in that line, if they got something like that happened in a certain street, then they would stop taking it. And the second reason was overcrowding a street or an area as well. So, for instance, in Shettleston, they won't take any more on because they're putting pressure on how the schooling, for instance. So asylum seekers are coming in, they've got children, it puts pressure on the schooling. And then, if you've got, just for numbers sake, 100 school kids just turned up within, a couple of months, that's extra pressure on the schools.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had limits in that sense. If we had too many properties in one area, they would take it on. And another reason was, like, for instance, Govanhill, that's a big no-no because of the Eastern Europeans have flooded that kind of area, so they wouldn't take that kind of area on either. So they had the reasons behind it. It wasn't just a case of, we don't like that postcode, we're not taking it. Don't get me wrong, some of the streets in Easterhouse are rough, but they would still take them on, I had one a few years ago which I sold on to an investor in Denmillan Street, I think it was. And again, it's not the best street in Glasgow or Easterhouse or anything, but they did take it on and it was well maintained. And, they will take on areas, but as long as you've not got any issues in that area, they will take it on.
Right. Okay.
And what's the terms of the agreement with like some Mears then? Did you say it was a 5-year contract and they kind of guarantee your rent plus all the maintenance for that 5 years?
At the beginning, how it worked when they came on, this is the reason why I think they got the contract, was they were guaranteeing the rent. Rent's always been guaranteed, but what they came in with we'll do all the repairs as well, up to £250. And that's why they got all the landlord to sign up. So if you had any small repairs, they were carrying it out. But now they've changed that, because now they've had a look and said, well, we're spending far too much money in maintenance here. We can't afford that anymore. So now any new properties that they take on, I'm not sure if they are. I know they stopped taking on new properties. I think it was about 6 or 8 weeks ago they stopped totally taking new properties and totally taking new asylum seekers into Glasgow. It was actually Glasgow City Council that stopped it and not Mears. Because of the situation. You'll be aware there was a hotel incident, so they stopped taking any new asylum seekers on because of that. But like I say, the contract was when it transferred from Serco to Mears, it was fully maintained, so they would do all the maintenance on it up to £250. But now they've stopped that. You won't get that new contract anymore. Now it's all the main repairs have to go.
I hope the kind of dilapidation of that when the kind of contract comes to an end after 5 years, they put the property back to the condition that they got.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I'm on today, because that's actually happened to me. I mean, there's a couple of situations happened with Mears, and this is the cons of the sides of the contract. So I had a property with them. It was with Serco, Botch and Shipment probably, then Serco, then Mears. And I came to a point, the rent was not very high. You knew when you were given a new property, this all started in kind of, if I remember, it started at about October, November time last year. So just under a year ago. I was getting £480 rent for a 2-bedroom. As for an increase, like anybody says, every year you should get a small increase. And they were giving, for new properties, they were giving £550. So I went back and I said, look, okay, I won't get the new rate, that's fine, but let's take it up to £520. We'll meet in the middle. So anyway, the housing officer went back to whoever she had to go to and came back with a figure for a rental increase of £1.21. I had to sit back and say, you're giving me an increase of £1.21. How does that work? So then they went back and said, oh, it's to do with inflation, blah, 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 and we've worked it out. And I says, but hold on, let's have a look at the lease. What does the lease say? So the lease does say, yeah, it's based on, inflation of, whatever the going inflation is. But then it also says, if you disagree with that, what you can do is you can appoint a surveyor and get a market rate for it. And if the market rate is whatever it is, then between you can decide what it is. So anyway, I went back and said, look, I don't agree. I think we should take the option of getting a market rate for this. But then obviously they knew the market rates, and for that kind of property was going to be about 575, 600 a month. They never went with that, so I kind of gave them notice. I says, well, if you're not going to increase my rent, I'm not happy. You're not happy. Let's just end the contract. They came back and said, no, we can't end the contract. It's a 5-year contract. It's fixed and that's it. End of story. I says, well, that's fine, but on the lease it also says this is the way we should work out the rental increases. So either we follow the lease or you end the contract, one or the other. So anyway, a lot of going back and forward. I mean, I had to laugh. One of the examples, one of the guys in Mears gave, and you guys will laugh at this as well. He says, well, Mr. Younas, when you go and buy a car and, you take finance out in a car, they don't just increase it after a year. And I had to stop and say, well, are you trying to compare a car finance to a rental property? Are you actually for you for a minute here? I mean, it's totally two different things. You're renting a property and, financing a car. But that's the example he gave me. So it just showed that they had no experience, or maybe and I don't know what their background was, and this is one of the head guys in Mears, believe it or not. It wasn't somebody I was talking to, letting level, because the letting level, I know them really well, and they're all they're good guys, and I've known them, like I say, throughout all the contracts they've been in. So they're saying, you have to go higher up, and obviously higher up, they're tied as well, and they're like, well, we can't do this, and that's the end of it. So anyway, gave them notice, not having it. So this property in particular, I must mention, it was my dad's property. It was my own property. So I went back and I said, look, my dad wants to move into the property, so you have to give it back for that. No, that's just, you're just blackmailing us now. That's what they came back with. I says, all right, okay, how do you call that blackmail, And then it came to a point where I said, look, guys, I'm giving you enough notice. Can you just get the tenant out and give me my property back? Because I want it back. Then finally came to a settlement of getting the property back, and then they couldn't rehouse the tenant they had in it, and it went on and on and on. And finally, 1st of June, I got an email out of the blue saying, "Oh, that's your property empty. You can get the keys back." Went up, had a look about. I says, "Well, there's a wee bit of work here. Tenants' belonging was still there, marks on the walls, flooring was damaged, the kitchen wasn't clean, the bathroom had marks on the actual bath itself, the wet wall panel had, been panned in." So the walk around, we kind of agreed, "Oh, all this work needs done. What's going on? Are you going to do it? Am I going to do it?" And the agreement was, no, we'll get it done. I says, "That's fine. Get it done, no problem. Let me know when it's ready then. We'll continue paying." What they agreed was, we'll continue paying the rent until the work's done. Fine, I'm okay with that, as long as, I'm still getting rent. Then, 4 weeks go in, 6 weeks go in, what's going on? Nothing's going on. Then that's when, the person I knew inside, they actually left the company. And they came back and I said, "Look, if you guys aren't getting the work done, I can get the work done. I've got a company that does it. You know what? I've got a company that does it. I can get it done. I'm not going to overcharge or anything. I just want the work done, property back in the market." Ended up, they done nothing, and I end up getting done the work done myself, because you can't have a property sitting about doing nothing. Then they came back and says, "Well, we'll just settle a figure on it." They offered me, believe it or not, £200 for a settlement figure. Something I quoted for, I think it was just over £2,000 it was. Full decorating the property, new flooring in the kitchen lounge. Curtains were missing. The front door was actually fully replaced and just one lock on it. Again, when they take a property on, they've got, they want 2 locks on it. One has to be a thumb turn. And the new door they put on that wasn't painted. And then the wallpaper was off in the hallway. It was all scratched in the bath. They had to replace a full bath because it was actually cracked inside. And they offered me £200 for it. So this is a warning that I want to give to other landlords. Guys, you might think, you're okay just now, you're getting rent out of hunky-dory, but when it comes to getting a property back, you need to be very careful. And you need to be, I was lucky enough it wasn't like, very high damage. It was just,
Did you see any clauses in your, contract to say that they were, any terms to say that they would give you the property back in, similar condition to what you gave it to? And, obviously you need to allow for wear and tear, but it sounds like what you're describing there is far worse than wear and tear.
No, the contract clearly states that they have to give it back to the same condition, excluding wear and tear. Everybody understands wear and tear. You can't expect a fully decorated property back. But if it's a wallpaper that's ripped, then that's not wear and tear. If a wall's been drawn on, that's not wear and tear. And if walls has got holes in it, that's not wear and tear. So everything I was telling them, because like I say, I've got experience in this market, so I wasn't I was going in and saying to them something that wasn't correct. And the people I deal with in Mears, the kind of letting side of it, they're very sympathetic. They goes, "You're right, but our hands are tied. We can't, we can only do what we can do." So I've actually personally started to take legal action against them. And I did warn them. I says, if I go through legals, I'll pay the fees just now. But, if I end up winning, which is a risk I'll take, and, I've got good grounds for it to work, because all the emails are there, all the communications there, all the photos are there. It's not something I've made up. If you guys lose, you're not going to be down 2,000, whatever it is. You're going to be down far more than that. And being the Home Office, if they get a sniff of that, you're going to be hit with a huge fine, because these guys, what happens with the contract? If they do, if they get inspections, if they fail an inspection, they get very high fines from the Home Office as well, because they have to maintain the property in good standards. So it just seems like, it's very unorganized. They're just not, I don't know whether they don't care or they're not bothered, or, somebody higher up just sitting there. This is just one example I'm giving you guys. I can go sit here, and I've spoke to other landlords. I'm actually going to a property this afternoon in Springburn, a landlord which is on that same group, Nick, that has just took back, and the place is, honestly, it's a riot, isn't the word. They've replaced the tiles, mismatched tiles.
Okay.
Although it says, you can't just
a couple of things that I want to kind of detangle there then, right? So you were talking, a couple of things that I feel, the 2 points here that you kind of feel like you've kind of been a little bit kind of done over on is, the rent price, obviously, that was initially agreed, because you believe that obviously the property, you should be getting a lot more, but their comeback is that, well, we only increase along with inflation or whatever the calculation that they use. So what was your kind of comeback to that?
Well, the comeback to that was that also in the contract, written in the contract, I can't remember the exact clause, but it says that if you as the client or the landlord don't agree with that, you can actually go down and appoint a surveyor.
Right.
So that's the option I took. I says, well, let's not go down the inflation rate. Let's go down the surveyor route.
Right, but they weren't really wanting.
Even though that was in the clause, it was clearly written in the clause.
So they weren't really wanting to take that on. They didn't. Did they allow the surveyor access, and you got that, or what happened there?
No, nothing. No, they weren't interested in that because they knew,
right.
that
they knew, right? Okay,
a lot more.
Okay, so there was no real negotiation there, and that resulted to you feeling that you just wanted the property back because you felt like you were being, done out of rent effectively. You felt that the property was worth a lot more than what you were getting for it. Okay. So,
it wasn't just that, Nick. I'll tell you the truth being, guys, the hierarchy that I was speaking to, their attitude and the way they spoke and what they said wasn't, what I was expecting as a landlord.
Right.
You've got clients and you've got, there's two aspects when you're in a letting agency. You've got the tenants, you've got the landlord, and you have to keep both happy. That's the truth of it.
Yeah,
sometimes they're not happy.
You didn't feel like you were getting the service as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just said, "Oh well, we don't care." It was a case of we don't care. That was the attitude. Yeah, take it or leave it. And we've got a 5-year contract. You can't do anything about it. That was it.
The other thing with the maintaining the property and getting the property back in a kind of bad condition, like you've described, was there a photographic, detailed inventory done at the start when they took it on? Right.
Yes.
So you've got that kind of evidence to go back on.
I've got that evidence. I mean, even the furniture, again, is something that I didn't bother with, but we gave the property furnished. But when they gave the property back to us, half the furniture was missing. But even the other half, it was there. It wasn't the furniture we gave them. It was a mismatch. It was a different sofa. You had to give them two-seater sofas, and the both that were in there were two different mismatches again. But again, it's not that I wasn't, I'm saying I wasn't bothered, but it's not something, I thought, because realistically, if you got somebody appointed and you dealt with that, you could have hit them with a bigger bill. But it's just one of those ones, as a landlord, you want something over the line and just kind of move on and close the chapter off. And that's what I was trying. I was trying to be as fair as possible with them.
But it's interesting that you've.
The service wasn't there.
Sorry, Stephen, you're going to jump in there.
No, it's good to see both sides of it because, like, on the face of it, it sounds like a cracking deal. Mears Group are going to pay your rent, guaranteed rent, 5-year contract, take care of kind of minor maintenance stuff, and give you the property back in the same condition. But like Qamar's saying, that you're getting, there's not quite the clauses, the discrepancies with the fair market rent, and then discrepancies at the end of the contract with what condition it is and how they're putting it back to the right condition. So it's nice to highlight it.
I mean, just another thing I must add. When I asked to get the property back and I said, look, I want the property back, they actually threatened to report me to not myself, but my dad. They said, we're going to report you to Glasgow City Council. I said, what for? Well, you're giving us, I says, but hold on a minute. The contracts that we've got is non-standard. It's not a PRT lease. So first and foremost, they won't entertain you anyway. But if you want to go down that road, let's do it because I'm in. And then you kind of back down. I won't mention the guy's name, but honestly, I had a really tough time with him. He was just so adamant, he wanted to keep the property, which, again, I mean, the letting agency I spoke to when the final checkout that we done.
How far into the contract were you when you said that you wanted to end the contract? And was this the 5-year
contract? Yeah, so in the contract it says every year you're due an increase. So I mean, I kind of I went based on the contract, so I pretty much kind of said that straight away. So after a year, I think it was last October, I triggered it. I said, well, I want the rent increase because it says in the contract every 12 months is a rent increase. And I actually put that on the group that we're on, the mutual group. And then a lot of people started getting the exact same increase, which I got. Like I say, some landlords are like, guaranteed rent. We're happy with that. No headache. Don't have to chase anyone for money. It comes in the first of the month. But now one of the other things that they've started to do is, if there's any maintenance issues, they don't actually tell you about it. They just go and get it done. And when your statement comes in, first of every month, there's money missing. And you're thinking, well, hold on a minute, what's happened here? Why am I missing money? So again, that's something the landlords need to be careful because it might not be something that you're budgeted for. If you've got a mortgage or if you've got other things to pay and you're relying on that money and half of it goes missing, then you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So one of the things that I did do with all my other properties now is I've sent a clear email to say if there's any maintenance or any issues, I'm going to carry them out, not you guys, because At the moment, how it works is they just go ahead and get it done. Unless you say, no, you guys are not doing it, I'm actually maintaining the property myself.
Okay, so you've got obviously you've got 3 properties that are being managed by Mears. So you've obviously, you know, if it was down to you and you had that option to get out of these contracts, would you take back these properties as well, or are you happy with these other ones that they're managing?
I mean, see the ones they've got just now, I'm actually happy with that, to tell you the truth, Nick. I'm not going to deny it until it comes to the point where I'm going to say, well, or they say we're going to hand the properties back, and then it comes to a point of saying, well, I'm not happy with this, and you know they give you a property back not in a good condition, then it's going to be really unhappy. So I think that's one of the things that everyone needs to stay on top of when it comes to dilapidations. You know, it needs to be, you're not going to get it back. Don't expect it, because it's not going to happen.
Do you get regular? Do you get any regular kind of inspection checks or anything like that? I take it when they take on the property, you don't have any contact with the tenants, do you? You don't get to go around the property or anything like that.
No, you're not allowed to do any. You're not allowed to do any kind of inspections. They have housing officers, so if there's any access required, one of the properties recently we had a leak going downstairs. So for me to get access, I had to contact the housing officer, who then came out and let me in, and that's how it was dealt with. So it's not just a case of, even if you want to do an inspection, they won't let you do that because it's in the contract. You're not allowed to do inspection. That's their kind of department. Because, I mean, the other thing I must mention is a high turnover as well of these properties. They change users, service users as they call them. So 1 week it might be a different family, the week after it might be a different family, or, I mean, the flip side of it might be somebody who's been there for the last 4 or 5 years. So it can vary in different kind of ways. It all depends on, I think, how the immigration works. Is depends on their status and how it's moving along. So they might change, you know, users quite frequently as well, as in the tenants.
Yeah, I mean, just to balance up the argument quickly, because obviously we need to watch that. We need to kind of see it from both sides here, as a kind of we want to kind of remain impartial almost here on the Scottish Property Podcast. So they would say that, and I know from speaking to our landlords that at the moment, I think just recently, I spoke to one of my landlords who switched over to them from, you know, I was managing it as a letting agent, and then they actually got, I mean, I think it was slightly less than the market rate, what we were getting for it on the private, you know, rental. But you know, the landlord's argument was, well, I'm saving on letting agency fees, so I'm saving 60 quid a month. So although the rent that we were getting was 600 a month, I think Mears offered them 550 a month. So
yeah,
I don't think, you know, at the moment they probably undercut the market rate that much, but maybe you just felt aggrieved because they didn't kind of update it in line. Is that right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that they never took it. I mean, as I said, the market rate they're giving now is, like you said, is 550. So what I kind of said is, let's not go for 550, because then, you know, maybe that's not something that you guys can do on your side. But let's take it to 520. That's, you know, that's still reasonable, and it's still under market value, because that is one of the things they do give you under market value. They don't give you full market rates, and the reason is because, you know, their buy-in is we're giving you guaranteed rent.
Yeah. Okay.
With a 5-year contract. So, like I say, the pros of it is you are getting guaranteed rent. You're getting a monthly coming in. You know, there's no issues on that side of it, chasing anyone for money, and you know who's got the property. So that is the good side of it. And there is, you know, like I say, I'm not going to say, you know, everything's all bad.
What about communication? Sorry.
Communication's terrible. I think I've just explained to you, you know, the communication I had regarding this one property, and the kind of things they were coming back with was just, you know, you couldn't understand it. I mean, some of it was just common sense, and you're thinking that doesn't even make sense. Let's be honest. So, communication from the letting side and the guys that take on the properties, they're really good. You know, like I say, I've still got a good relationship with them. They're all, you know, I can phone them any time of the day, and even the evening or whatever. They're quite good in that sense of it. But if you've got any repairs or anything, you need to go through a department down in England. If you've got a account issue, you need to go down to a department in England. So it's not just a case of phoning, like, or Nick, my rent's missing, where is it? And you phone the tenant and says, where's it coming? So it's a process you need to follow. It's not just simple.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's a multi, you know, it's a UK-wide big company, so you're dealing with whole systems, procedures, departments. There'll be a lot of kind of bureaucracy along the way. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
And I think that's where the communication gets a lot of mixed up. But like I say, sorry guys, the biggest problem that they had was the main, and I was dealing with, I believe I was dealing with the main head in Scotland who I was speaking to. And if that, if that person in charge can't deal with a query like what I've got, then, they're going to have problems going forward. It's not going to resolve itself. I mean, I actually managed to get somebody higher than the person I was speaking to. And when I spoke to him, he agreed. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I'll give you the rent increase, no problem." So then on an email, that's on email, by the way. It's not. I'm not making this, because I'm always very wary of these things, because you can't start these accusations without having proof. So all this is on email.
Yeah.
So when I copied both the guys and says, "Well, you agreed to the rent increase. He's not agreeing to it. What's happening here?" And I was ignored, totally ignored.
Okay.
So yeah, like I say, the communication is not there. That's a problem, because they are a multinational, like you said, and they're not just a phone call away or anything.
Okay. So just to sum up, basically, if anybody's considering this, I mean, I know you're saying that they're not actually taking on any more properties at the moment, in Glasgow, but possibly in the future, there's talk about, UK talking about accepting 20,000 Afghan refugees into the country. I'm not sure if Glasgow City Council are going to be one of the ones who are going to, provide accommodation. But if this does come about again in the future and people are wondering if they should go for it, what would be your kind of best tips or advice?
With regards to the Afghan refugees coming, I don't think that's going to be part of the Mears contract. I think some have already actually entered Glasgow already, where I'm reading. So different councils take these in, and I'm sure other councils, I think it was Renfrewshire or East, somebody else took them in as well.
Right.
So that's a totally different kind of contract, or maybe a different thing. That's dealt with locally by the councils, not actually Mears or a group with that. So that's I think the only people that Mears or, this contract looks after is people entering from ports. So if somebody enters from, and they've got a case going on with the Home Office, I think that's the kind of users that Mears contract is attracting. Right. It's not the Afghans.
Okay, what would you tell people? What would you tell people, to look out for, and just to summarise this kind of top tips if this did.
I mean, look at the contract that you're signing. I would definitely say the leases, I think it's 2 pages long. Read every single clause on it and make sure you understand it. Because number one thing is, you don't want to enter something that, again, like I said, when I entered the contract, I did read everything. And that's the reason why I signed it. And now, obviously, when they started backing out a couple of clauses, that's when I triggered it. And I said, well, I'm not happy with it. So I've definitely advise everyone to make sure you're happy with the clauses, and make sure you understand it fully as well. And make sure that you kind of, when you're doing the sign up, you advise them any maintenance repairs, let yourselves know, or the landlord know, because you don't want any repairs carried on. You don't know anything about it. And secondly, again, when it comes to the end of it, and it depends on everybody's circumstances as well, Nick. I believe if somebody's in it for long term, they might think, well, 5 years, that's fine. If I get a property back in 5 years and I need to spend a few £1,000s on it, that's fine, fair enough. But not everyone's got that capacity, or they've not got that kind of thinking. So I would definitely say be wary of the contract. It's not something that you just sign and it's all hunky-dory and everybody's happy at the end of it, because you might come out of it thinking, well, I've been done by, or I'm not happy with it. So like I said, I've known it for a few years, but you need to be very wary of that. I would say that's the main thing when you get your property back.
Okay, and you're a Glasgow resident then. What do you think, do we have the capacity in Glasgow to deal with, asylum seeker? I mean, obviously everybody wants to help out as best we can, but do we have the capacity to deal with? Do we have the housing? Do we have, there's talk of like hotels and that have to basically accommodate the asylum seekers. And there was obviously that case last summer there where the guy was shot dead by the police because he attacked 6 residents in the hotel or staff. What's your kind of view on that? Because I know you do have a view.
Well, I mean, with regards to the hotel incident and all that kind of stuff that happened, I think when COVID hit, a lot of these guys, when they were coming, they were just getting put in hotels rather than apartments. And it came to a point where everybody got fed up with it, and they weren't getting, COVID was a tough time for everyone, let's be honest. It wasn't easy for anyone. And these guys, when they were in hotels, I think they were getting bad service. They weren't getting, you hear about the stories, again, whether they're true or not, we don't know.
Yeah.
Even getting their lunch, dinner, water, even simple things as water, they weren't getting the service. And obviously one of the guys, lost a plot, and that's, everybody knows what happened after that. I mean, that hotel's still shut down. But the person who I was close to touch with recently, he managed to get everyone out of the hotels back into apartments again.
Yeah, because
So
that was
there's
that was a big criticism. A lot of people said there's no way that basically, you know, they should be put in hotels in the first place. You know, they should be given their own space, etc. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you, like I say, you're a letting agency yourself. During COVID, you didn't. I'm guessing you didn't close. You still had to kind of keep everything going. You couldn't just close up and say, "Well, I'm not taking any new properties on, or I'm not
yeah,
taking new tenants on, or nobody's leaving my properties." So everyone handled it the way it did, but Mears Group didn't handle it very well in Glasgow because they weren't taking. They did take properties on, but they weren't. If somebody was leaving a property, they were just leaving it empty. So they were losing a lot of money with these contracts with the hotels and not getting people into apartments, and it was just mismanagement. I mean, I personally think that somebody should be hit for this. Somebody needs to be pulled up and says, right, we need to do an investigation. What happened to you? What went wrong? But everything just seems to be hidden under the carpet and forgotten about, which isn't right. It's
well,
end of the day,
this is one of the reasons
honest,
why we.
Nick.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we want to kind of put it out in the podcast, because there's obviously issues there because other people have raised concerns as well. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully,
I mean, one of the things we must say, this is public money is getting spent. It's not coming from, nobody's giving grants or anything. This is public taxpayers. This is tax that I pay and you pay and everyone's paying. It's not, it's not coming from nobody's giving us this money. So
yeah, well, ultimately the end client is the end customer, is the Home Office, which is the government basically. So we are paying for it.
We are 100%, no denying that. So I mean, and it has to be investigated, Nick. And I'm a strong believer that if it's been mismanaged, and these guys they're not on low wages or anything, they'll be on very high wages looking after these kind of contracts. And if they're not doing their job, then they need to be pulled up and saying, well, what's going on here? What went wrong? I mean, the 6 people that got injured or whatever happened, I can't even remember the end result of what happened exactly, but when it did happen, it was quite a big thing. And for those families and whoever's affected, somebody needs to be, say, well, what went wrong here? We need to investigate it, because we've never heard anything after that. That's the truth. It just got brushed under the carpet and forgotten about. And that hotel's still closed, damaged. I mean, if I was speaking to someone recently and they were saying every single door in that hotel was broken down. So you can imagine the amount of damage that's been done inside the hotel. And it's something that we should take a very, very serious about. And if we're involved with it, we should definitely be writing emails or whatever we need to do as landlords and as action. If we've got an action group as well, and take it forward and say, well, who's wrong?
Okay.
Who was wrong?
Thanks very much for giving us your experience. That was really good. And a lot of people will be interested to hear that. In terms of your own, what you're up to at the moment, where can people get in contact if they want to ask you any questions? I mean, I know you're quite active on that social media. So
yeah, I'm quite active on social media and I'm available. I mean, you guys have got my details as well. If anybody wants to get in touch with you guys and get in touch and pass my details on, I'm happy with that. I'm on Facebook as well. If anything, I've got a company as well. If anybody wants any help with any kind of issues, there's a lot of kind of issues regarding certifications as well with Mears. So again, clarify yourself, guys. I mean, it's very important, because if you don't have a certification, your insurance isn't valid. It's simple as that. So just make sure that the certifications are getting done. If you've instructed Mears to do them, make sure they're doing them, because if they're not, then you're in trouble again. Because at the end of the day, you'll know it's always the landlord that's responsible, even though you've got a letting agency or whoever managing it.
Excellent.
So get in touch with me in any kind of platform. My name's Qamar Younas, and like I say, any issues or any questions that anyone's got, they're more than welcome to come through yourself. You guys, like I say, you're doing a great job on this podcast, and hopefully I'll be back on about a different product.
Something a bit more positive next time. Aye.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably buy another Tesla.
Yeah, we'll do a separate episode on the Tesla owners. No problem. Thanks very much for joining us, Qamar, and have a great day. Cheers again.
Appreciate it. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Clark.
Cheers.
Stephen, sorry, I'm calling you Clark. Sorry. Thank you very much, and have a good day, guys. All right.
Yeah.
Clark Kent.
Take care.
Cheers. See you later.
Bye. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that interview, guys, with Qumar. He was kind enough to come on and share his story, but like we said at the start, this is one investor and landlord's opinion on the experience they've had with that scheme in Mears Group. So, guys, if you'd love to we'd love to have you leave us a review or share the podcast on social media. The more people we can reach with this, the better. And we're loving your feedback. As always, Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you again next week.